Welcome to WorkSpan TV. I'm Allison Avalos, Research Manager for WorldatWork. In today's Research in Brief, we'll be discussing results from the recently published Promotional Guidelines Survey, last published in 2010. I'm joined by Kerry, Chou, Senior Compensation Practice Leader. Kerry, like most compensation programs, promotional increases suffered a bit during the recession, but have seen some improvements since. Can you talk about the average size of promotional increases these days?
The research shows in our latest survey that the average increases, depending on the employee group, are anywhere between 7.5% to about a little bit above 10%. Now, this is an improvement from the 2010 survey that we did, which was in the low 7 to 9% range. And so, while we have seen some improvement, Allison, we're not back to where we were pre-recession. When increases were actually as high as 11% plus. The takeaway is we're making modest improvements. We still have some work to do.
The 2010 survey reported that about 7% of employees were being promoted, which was down from prior years. What have we seen since? Are the number of promotions increasing? Has there been a jump since 2010 in terms of how many employees are being promoted?
We've seen about a 1-point gain, so the latest survey findings indicate that a little over 8% of employees, in terms of percentage of employees, are being promoted right now. Again, that's an improvement, as we mentioned, but still down from the 10 to 11% average number of employees that are promoted in a typical year. I think what's going on a little bit, Allison, is we think from our school days and talking about Maslow's hierarchy for just a bit, most people in the last few years probably weren't as concerned about, am I going to get a promotion? It's whether I'm going to have a job when I get to the office in the morning and whether I'm going to have a paycheck. So I think promotions in general perhaps took a little bit of a backseat as people were just nervous about making sure they could put food on the table. Now that we're seeing some modest gains, both in terms of the drop in unemployment, as more companies are starting to hire, we would expect more organizations to probably want to spend a little bit more time thinking about their promotional activity, as we would expect employees, now that things are settling down, to start getting a little restless.
What you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I'm just curious, what did respondents say about the effect that they think that promotional opportunities have on their workforce in terms of employee motivation and employee engagement?
Not surprisingly, most organizations really feel that their promotional activity in their organization has a positive or extremely positive impact on motivation and engagement. Basically, 2/3 of the respondents said that. In addition, there was a small percentage, about 5%, that interestingly said their promotional activity had a negative or an extreme negative impact. And so if you put those two together, I assume perhaps due to a lack of a promotional activity, people weren't happy about that. But we're still talking about 7 out of 10 employers saying that their promotional activity is important.
While much of the survey covers promotional practices, very tactical elements to a promotional program, what are the learnings in terms of how employees are being communicated to with regards to promotions and how they're being used when it comes down to recruitment? Are employers talking about these programs during recruitment and using them?
To answer your first question, interestingly, about 15 to 20% of organizations have a goal for all of their employees to understand their promotional practices. So on the surface, that seems kind of low. Having said that, in the recent survey, about 70% of employers indicated that they only share promotional guidelines to employees, only to those employees who are actually receiving a promotion. I think part of that probably stems from the fact that just because promotional activity has probably been low, as the survey results have shown us in the past few years, I think organizations are kind of have taken a little bit more of a low-key approach to communicating their promotions. I mean, it's why sort of pour salt on the wound, touting promotional guidelines when you're not promoting as much. As with some of the other statistics, I would expect those to snap back a little bit here again as the economy improves. One thing that you did mention, which I think is still a missed opportunity for many organizations, is our survey results show that only about 40% of organizations actively market to potential employees their promotional activity and the opportunities for advancement in their organization. So while that number is going up and that's good news, obviously on the flip side we've got 60% of organizations who aren't doing much in terms of promoting promotions to potential new hires, and I think that's kind of a missed opportunity for them.
So there's a lot of improvement when it comes to the promotional increase practices and promotions themselves, but still a lot of opportunity for employers to better take advantage of those programs in the organization. For World at Work, I'm Allison Avalos.